How to write your book if you don't feel like you're a writer. Yesterday, I had a meeting with a business leader, this amazing woman, and she says, I am not a writer. I could never imagine writing a book. I've never dreamed about writing a book. And then one day you start to think, maybe I need to write a book, but then you immediately disqualify yourself because you say, I'm not a writer. Friend, in this video, I'm going to walk you through a proven process that we follow at Hope Books, which will help you write your book, even if you don't feel like you're a writer. See, what is a writer? There's this idea that a writer is this guru on the hill, that they have this aura around them, this vibe around them, that people go, oh, I want to sit at your feet and learn from you. And yes, there are writers who just have this eloquent way of explaining the worlds, and you feel like I could never be like that person. Two thoughts on that. Number one is 10,000 hours. They've put the time in to become who they are. 10,000 hours. They have put the time in to become who they are. So don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. They just think about how long that they've been doing it, okay? It's very easy for us to want to compare ourselves. It's very easy for us to want to compare ourselves to people that are like way further ahead of us. But it's like saying, I'm never going to play tennis with my wife because I am not Djokovic. I'm not Andre Agassi. I'm not the best tennis player in the world. It has nothing to do with anybody else playing the game. You have a game that you can play at your level. So that's number one. Don't compare your beginning to somebody else's middle. Yes, there are people that have put in the 10,000 hours and are far more eloquent than you, but that is not the point. The point is that what you've been through, someone else is going through. I want you to hear me clearly on that. That's what your book is about. The thing that you've been through, the thing that you've been challenged by, the thing that knocked you down but didn't knock you out, the thing that you escaped from and found a way to move forward, that thing right there, that is going to help somebody else. And no one cares how great of a writer you are. They just want to know how to get unstuck. That's all they want to know. They just want to know how to get unstuck. And if you can help them get unstuck, then they're going to want to read your book. If you can entertain them, educate them, or inspire them, they're going to want to read your book. And it doesn't matter if you're the world's greatest writer. Now, what does that look like for you practically? And specifically for the woman that I met with yesterday, who's a business leader, who said, I could never write a book. I'm not a writer. This is for you, my friend. This is for you. So there's 5 steps to writing your book. Number 1 is dream. Dream. What you do is you dream about what would the book look like when it's completely done. So who is the reader? What's the problem you talk about, and what's the promise you offer? We call that the XYZ statement. You already know that because you could write a book for yourself from 3 to 5 years ago. So if you're a business leader and you struggled for years and then you figured something else out, what if you could have a guide from the future to help you back then get unstuck faster? That would be a gift. That would be such a blessing. So that is the XYZ, the person, the problem, the promise. Then I think the fun part is the title and the book cover. The title and the book cover is like, oh, this is a real thing. The title is the promise of the book, and the book cover gets the reader's attention. And now with AI, you can create book covers that look really cool in a really short amount of time. So that's step number 1, is the dream. So basically what I would recommend is you really think about, who is that person that I could help? Who was I a few years ago? What was I struggling with? And how did I get unstuck? That's your book. And then creating a cover that exemplifies that, and then printing it out and putting it on a frame and putting it in your office and saying, that's what I want the book to look like. It'll inspire you to take the next 4 steps. Okay, so that was step number 1, is to dream about the book, allowing yourself to dream. I think the number 1 reason that most people say, oh, I could never write a book, is because they haven't given themselves the grace and the space to actually dream about the book. So give yourself some time to dream about the book. Wouldn't it be cool if, and then it would be so cool to have a book like this. That would help. That would help. I used to be a classroom teacher. If I had a book to help a teacher like me get unstuck, that would have been so valuable. Actually, there have been books like that in my life, and you can write something like that too. Okay, so that's number one, dream. Number two is build. This is where we actually create the plan to build the book rather than to write the book. See, the biggest mistake the first time authors make is they just start writing without a plan. And so we're going to build the plan. We're going to build it, not write it. We're going to build it first before we write it. So what does building look like? It is about the transformational tale, what we call the problem, promise, path. And it's very structured. So chapter 1 is your story of stuck. Where were you stuck? That's what people want to know, because if you say where you were stuck, then they'll say, oh, I'm there too. Or she had it worse than I did, so I can trust her and follow her process. So that's chapter number 1, is where were you stuck. Chapter 12 is what your life is like now. You're now living in the promised land. So you have the prison, chapter 1, the promised land, chapter 12, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All of those chapters are the story from stuck to success. Those chapters are the path from the prison to the promised land. Now, what if it's not 10 steps? What if it's 7 steps? Great, then you have a 9-chapter book, Stuck, Success, and then the 7 steps. So it might be the steps that you took. That's what I would recommend. It might be new realizations you had, beliefs that you needed to change. And all you do is you start with where you are today. So this is chapter 12 is today. And then you go, what did I do in the last 3 to 6 months? That's chapter 11. What did I do 3 to 6 months before that? That's chapter 10. And you just work backwards. And if you get stuck, the hack is to go on your camera roll. Look at your photos and just work backwards. If it's the month of September, what did August look like? What did July look like? What did June look like? And just work backwards and write about what you did to get to where you are until you get all the way back to where you were stuck. And when I say right, I don't mean right at this point. I just mean the bullet points. This is what I did. Here's where I was stuck. Here's what I did. Then I got stuck, and here's what I did. And these are the steps that I took to get unstuck. That's your map. That's your outline. That's your table of contents. And that's step number 2. So once you have your XYZ, your book title, your book cover, in the dream stage, now you have the build stage, which is now I have my outline. I know my prison, promise, path. What happens next? Now you start to fill in the blanks. So this is where you tell a story about each step. You share a teaching about each step. You have a few journal prompts or reflection questions for each step, and you just flesh out those chapters. And if you've done the work at this point, it's going to start to feel a little bit like fill in the blank and paint by number, and a lot less like sitting and trying to figure out what am I going to say. You're just basically answering your own questions. You're just talking about each of these specific moments in your life, and that's how you write the book. You just, today I'm going to write about this part of my life. You go back to your camera roll and you talk about what that was like. If you get really stuck, you open up your voice memo app on your phone and you hit record and you just talk it out. Okay, talk it out and walk it out. I like to walk while I talk, and I record while I walk, and that's my rough draft, which is step 3, write, which leads us to step 4. And step 4 is to revise. This is where we're actually going to make the edits, and I recommend that someone else revise. You need someone else that can be your editor. So this is where you either hire an editor or you work with a publisher like our company, Hope Books. We provide amazing, fantastic, well-trained editors. So the revision stage is where we're going to edit the words inside the book. We're also going to build out the file, the formatted file for the interior manuscript. So now you have the cover and you have the interior file. Your book is basically ready. Now it's time to launch, which is step number 5. And launch is where we work on your marketing copy. So who's it for? Why would they care? What are they going to learn in the book? AI can help with a lot of this. You take your manuscript, you put in AI, you say, please write an Amazon description for my book. You're going to get something pretty good. And that's where you load it into your printer distribution system. Depending on if you're working with a printer, a publisher, you're self-publishing, you're traditionally publishing, there's a couple different ways to approach this. But at the end of the day, people need to know what the book's about, who it's for, what you talk about in the book. And so that's the marketing copy. It's explaining what the book is about. And that's step number 5, is launching the book. Finding ways to tell other people that they need the book. Going on podcasts, sharing on social media, speaking on stages, building partnerships, finding ways to tell one new person each day about your book. And over time, it will grow when you keep sharing and communicating the message. And so, did any of that feel like being a wise writer? Did any of that feel like, oh, I've got to go sit in a cabin in the woods and be brilliant? No, it's just step by step. Inch by inch, life is a cinch. Taking one small step at a time leads to really incredible results. And so you do not have to be a beautiful, perfect, poetic writer in order to get your book together. You just need a plan and to follow through on the plan. Now, if you need coaching, accountability, and a good system, that's what we do at Hope Books. So we'd love to talk with you. HopeBooks.com/call. Talk to our team about how we can help you make your dream come true about actually writing a book that helps other people.